welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching The World Report on News Expo. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has lashed out at the United States raid on a Venezuelan oil tanker. The U.S. maintains that the seizure of the tanker took place due to the fact that it was ferrying sanctioned oil between Venezuela and Iran. Russian President Vladimir Putin has met with his counterparts at the Central Asia Summit in Turkmenistan, where he has praised the country for its neutral stand in the region. Mexico's Senate has approved the hikes to tariff rates imposed on several Asian countries, including India and China. The move is expected to hurt foreign imports with rates up to 50% levied on different countries. According to a Japanese defense ministry release, Japan's defense minister Shinjiro Koizumi and his U.S. counterpart Pete Hegseth spoke on the phone on Friday about the recent confrontation between Chinese and Japanese self-defense force fighter jets. As Tokyo said, it did not seek to escalate the tensions. However, China blames Japan that it is escalating the tension. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, while hosting Brunei's second Minister of Foreign Affairs, assured that China is ready to work with Brunei to maintain high-level exchanges and collaboration to further accelerate China-Brunei ties. According to the Aviation Industry Corporation of China, a large unmanned aerial vehicle named Jiu Tian has completed its maiden flight. The domestically developed general-purpose drone, measuring 16.35 meters in length and 25 meters in wingspan, underscores China's expanding air force. Thailand's king has endorsed a royal decree to dissolve the lower house of parliament, paving the way for a general election early next year. The decree was countersigned by Prime Minister Charlie Miracle, cited his administration's status as a minority government as the primary reason for this dissolution. The Fire Services Department of the Hong Kong has posthumously conferred the honorary title of Senior Fireman on late Ho Va Ho, who passed away fighting the blaze of Tai Po fire in recognition of his exemplary service and selfless dedication to duty, while the investigation on this fire still continues. Now we start with Americas. The White House has said that an oil tanker seized by American forces off of the Venezuelan coast will now be brought to a U.S. port, escalating fears of a possible confrontation between Washington and Caracas. U.S. forces took control of the ship in a dramatic helicopter raid, which Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has said that targeted what she described as the Maduro regime's black market oil operations. The Trump administration has ramped up pressure on Venezuela for months, deploying major naval assets and carrying out strikes on alleged drug trafficking boats that have left nearly 90 people dead. The White House has also said that the seized vessel will head to a U.S. port and the oil on board will be confiscated as part of what officials call a crackdown on illicit shipping networks. Let's listen in.
Tell you right now, the vessel has been seized, as you know, and the Department of Justice did that in conjunction with the Coast Guard and the Department of War. The vessel is currently undergoing a forfeiture process right now. The United States currently has a full investigative team on the ground on the vessel, and individuals on board the vessel are being interviewed and any relevant evidence is being seized. With respect to the oil, that's a different issue. As you know, Peter, the vessel will go to a U.S. port, and the United States does intend to seize.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Spencer Critchley. He's a communications strategist, joins us live from California. Thank you very much, Mr. Spencer, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, this is indeed surprising for me because I didn't know there was black market oil from Venezuela to Iran. What more can you tell us about what is this route ongoing for a long term, and what more can you share with us on this?
Well, I am not an expert on the illicit international oil trade either, but I think we can assume there is a lot of shady stuff going on with Venezuela and its oil. And Venezuela does tend to deal with countries that much of the rest of the world considers to be pariahs. This also involves Russia very often. Of course, Russian oil has been embargoed by the United States and other countries because of its invasion of Ukraine, and yet there are other nations who continue to buy Russian oil, often through this kind of black market operation involving what are known as ghost ships, which are not officially registered and sort of sneak illicit oil all around the world. And I would not put any of this past Nicolas Maduro, who stole the last election in Venezuela and who is a corrupt dictator. Unfortunately, I don't believe we can trust any of the justifications being offered by the Trump administration either, since Trump has established now, well, really a lifelong record of lying shamelessly and certainly throughout his political career. I think the first assumption should be that it's intended to distract attention from what is either a war crime or an outright murder in the, what appears to be anyway, based on available evidence so far, in the second strike on one of the many Venezuelan small boats that the Trump administration has been targeting. I think it's also an expression of Trump's desire to seize control of Venezuelan oil and gas, which has been a long-time obsession of his, is getting hold of oil supplies, whether it's from Venezuela or previously from Iraq. And of course, I think it may also be intended as pressure on Maduro to step down and to stage essentially regime change in Venezuela.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Spencer, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is sharply condemning the U.S. seizure of an oil tanker from his country, calling the operation an act of naval piracy that pushes tensions with Washington to a new level. Speaking on state broadcaster VTV, Maduro has accused what he called supremacists in the United States of kidnapping the crew, stealing the vessel, and opening what he described as a new era of criminal piracy in the Caribbean. The criticism follows a high-profile U.S. raid in which American forces boarded the tanker by helicopter, a move that has already fueled diplomatic strain between these two nations. Maduro's latest remarks signal that Caracas sees the tanker seizure not just as an enforcement action, but as a direct provocation in an increasingly volatile relationship with Washington. Let's listen in.
Y ayer se les cayó la máscara. Y debe saber la gente honesta en Estados Unidos, debe saber el pueblo, toda la población, que los supremacistas que están gobernando Estados Unidos quieren una guerra en Sudamérica, quieren una nueva Somalia o peor, quieren un nuevo Vietnam, quieren una nueva Libia. Secuestraron a los tripulantes. Se robaron el barco y han inaugurado una nueva era, la era de la piratería naval criminal en el Caribe. Así que Venezuela rechaza en todas sus partes esta acción de piratería criminal contra todo el Caribe.
Meanwhile, after Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his support for Venezuela, the Venezuelan president has hailed his Russian counterpart's backing and urged the American public to stop warmongers. Let's listen in.
Secuestraron a los tripulantes. Se robaron el barco y han inaugurado una nueva era, la era de la piratería naval criminal en el Caribe. Así que Venezuela rechaza en todas sus partes esta acción de piratería criminal.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Critchley. He's a communications strategist, joins us live from California. Thank you very much, Mr. Critchley, for staying with us. You know, as you have already mentioned, how might it directly affect or already tense political relationship between Washington and Caracas. My question now to you is, how might this Maduro's framing of the tanker siege as naval piracy and also Russia criticizing this move by U.S. influence international perception or influence the current U.S.-Venezuela standoff?
My God, what a tangle of liars and gangsters we have here. Maduro,
Indeed.
Putin, and Trump.
Yes.
You know, and it's a shameful commentary on the current state of American politics that our president would cite Putin as a character witness as well. Imagine citing Vladimir Putin as somebody who supports your case. Neither Maduro nor Putin can be trusted on anything. Unfortunately, neither can Trump. Unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say it, I think Maduro has a point about this being an act of piracy. It's possible to imagine a situation under which the United States might legitimately impose an embargo on the Venezuelan oil industry, but I believe that would require a declaration of war, since it would be a hostile act of war to do such a thing. To simply unilaterally decide that you're going to seize an oil tanker from a sovereign nation, no matter how much we might disapprove of the leadership of that nation, strikes me as an act of piracy. Related to another illegitimate act, which again, no matter how much I wish Maduro would leave and relieve the people of Venezuela from the crushing burden of his corrupt dictatorship, to engage in regime change from the outside is also illegitimate. And it's certainly a lesson that the United States has learned very painfully in past decades, and one would hope learned once and for all. But if there's one thing that Trump shows he will not do, it's learn.
Yes, indeed, and this alignment does make me say, what a time to be alive. And you know, what do you think about the timing of Russia stating this? Do you think Russia is afraid or worried that this might continue? And then we know that Russia has a lot of shadow fleets across the world, maybe even in Caribbean, who knows? Do you think it's scared that this will provoke to broader dissemination towards other shadow fleets or other black market oil operations in the world?
I would think so, and I think Russia also enjoys having a foothold in South America, in Venezuela, just like it has enjoyed its foothold in Cuba for so many years. And given its paucity of allies, it wants to hang on to any that it can. And of course, Putin also wants to prop up this illicit oil trade as much as he possibly can to shore up Russia's shaky finances. Not, of course, out of any concern for the fate of the people of Russia. Putin is, by all accounts, one of the richest men in the world, thanks to a career of looting his own country. Perhaps that needs to be set to the side for the moment. But yes, I think you're right that Putin would want to prevent any interference with illicit oil shipments and would want to maintain some kind of foothold in South America. And again, one can understand why the United States is uncomfortable with such a foothold and with Venezuela's dealings with other countries that are hostile to the United States. But as a matter of national sovereignty, the United States doesn't really get to decide such things and can only respond with threats and force if it is in fact directly threatened. And so far, Venezuela poses no significant threat to the United States.
Right, that is a question we have to ask, but thank you for sharing that, Mr. Spencer. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on the focus to Ukraine, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that the U.S. would send a representative to upcoming peace talks in Europe on Ukraine, but only if there is a genuine chance for a ceasefire agreement. Speaking in the Oval Office, Trump has emphasized the U.S. would not participate if the talks appeared unproductive. Let's listen in.
Look, the United States and the Trump administration continues to be very much engaged in trying to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to an end. The President had a call with Europeans yesterday. His special envoy Witkoff and his team continue to talk with both sides literally as we speak. If there is a real chance of signing a peace agreement, if we feel like those meetings are worthy of someone on the United States' time this weekend, then we will send a representative. It's still up in the air whether we believe real peace can be accomplished and we can truly move the ball forward. The president is extremely frustrated with both sides of this war, and he is sick of meetings just for the sake of meeting. He doesn't want any more talk. He wants action. He wants this war to come to an end. And the administration has spent more than 30 hours, just in the past couple of weeks, meeting with the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Europeans and speaking with them as well. So we'll see about the meetings this weekend, and stay tuned.
White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has added that President Trump is frustrated with the ongoing conflict and seeks tangible results, not just discussions for their own sakes. Here's what she has shared.
Look, the United States and the Trump administration continues to be very much engaged in trying to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to an end. The President had a call with Europeans yesterday. His special envoy Witkoff and his team continue to talk with both sides literally as we speak. If there is a real chance of signing a peace agreement, if we feel like those meetings are worthy of someone on the United States' time this weekend, then we will send a representative. It's still up in the air whether we believe real peace can be accomplished and we can truly move the ball forward. The president is extremely frustrated with both sides of this war, and he is sick of meetings just for the sake of meeting. He doesn't want any more talk. He wants action. He wants this war to come to an end. And the administration has spent more than 30 hours, just in the past couple of weeks, meeting with the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Europeans and speaking with them as well. So we'll see about the meetings this weekend, and stay tuned.
Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has confirmed talks with the U.S. about security guarantees and post-war economic recovery, stressing the importance of international cooperation, especially from the U.S. He has also mentioned that Ukraine could only hold elections during the war if security conditions were met, with U.S. support crucial to ensuring safe voting. Let's listen in.
And if President Trump is speaking more about elections in Ukraine, I want to say this very openly. We can try to hold elections. Ukraine is not hiding from democracy, but to make elections possible, there must be a security component, and America can help with this the most. If there is a need for elections now, there must be a ceasefire at least during election process and during voting, and this is something that must be discussed. And honestly, we think here in Ukraine that America should speak to the Russian side about this.
Trump has noted that he believed a peace deal was close, but that Ukrainian President Zelensky was the main obstacle to reaching an agreement despite widespread support for the plan within Ukraine. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Spencer Critchley. He's a communication strategist, joins us live from California. Thank you very much, Mr. Spencer, for staying with us. Now, it seems like rather U.S. is pushy or rushing. What's your take, and why do you think President Trump is rushing this decision?
Well, he's certainly not rushing it very successfully after famously promising to bring this war to an end easily within the first 24 hours of the second administration.
Yes.
I think we're just seeing a combination of his incompetence and moral nihilism. To equate the two sides in this war and to express equal frustration with the aggressor that invaded one of our allies and has been deliberately targeting, in some cases massacring and torturing Ukrainian civilians throughout the course of the war. And to equate them with the victims of that very aggression and those very atrocities is an example of, as I say, Trump's utter moral nihilism. I believe his only interest here is in bringing the war to an end so that he can proceed with setting up business deals with Russia that will benefit not so much the United States, but himself, his family, and his friends, including Steve Witkoff, his lead envoy, who's busily negotiating deals in Russia and around the world on behalf of himself and his family. There really is a close parallel here between the years before World War II and the present day. Imagine if Winston Churchill had been equally impatient with the Czechs and the Poles and the French and the other victims of Nazi invasions and thrown up his hands and said, what are we going to do? Why can't these people solve this problem for me? Not even, of course, Neville Chamberlain would have adopted an attitude like that, as much of as an appeaser as he turned out to be. Trump isn't just committing appeasement like Chamberlain did. He's betraying every principle the United States supposedly stands for, apparently for no other reason than to just serve his own self-interest.
And you know, from your analysis, now how do you analyze how aligned are U.S. and Ukraine and U.S. and Russia?
Oh my gosh, unfortunately under Trump, obviously the U.S. is far more closely aligned with Russia. And you have Trump apologists and allies celebrating this as a good thing in the United States. This is something that was previously unthinkable here. Anybody who had such opinions would keep them to themselves for fear of the public shaming they would endure for expressing a sentiment like that. The idea that the United States would side with a corrupt dictator who, as I say, is guilty of atrocities, not only in Ukraine, but in the Republic of Georgia, Afghanistan, you know, multiple countries. It would just be unthinkable in the United States. And yet you have people like the famous right-wing media personality Tucker Carlson, I think just today or the day before, talking about how there's a natural alliance between the United States and Russia, supposedly. We have Witkoff coming back from Russia with, you know, the 28-point plan that was the version of the so-called U.S. plan just a few weeks ago, which had apparently been dictated to him by the Russians and essentially represented the same list of demands they've had since the day they invaded. So unfortunately, it seems clear that between these two, I should correct myself from earlier, I guess. It's not that the United States is ranking these two as equivalent. It clearly favors Russia greatly under the leadership of Donald Trump, which again is just would have been unthinkable until Donald Trump came along.
100%, very insightful. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Spencer Critchley for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to Asia. Thailand's caretaker Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul has announced that he intends to return to power to the people, signing his plan to dissolve parliament and pave the way for fresh elections. Anutin, who is the leader of the conservative Boom Jai Tan party, made the announcement in a Facebook post confirming his earlier pledge to call for a vote by early 2026. Anutin's decision to dissolve parliament has followed the approval of King Maha Vajiralongkorn, who endorsed the move. The dissolution could lead to elections as early as February 2026. This development comes less than 100 days after Anutin, who took office following the removal of his predecessor over an ethics violation. While political tensions rise, especially amid an ongoing border conflict with Cambodia, Anutin has emphasized that dissolving parliament would not affect the situation at the border, which has seen at least 20 people killed and around 600,000 displaced, mostly in Thailand. Prime Minister Anutin's decision to push for an early election comes amid heightened domestic pressure, including fears of a no-confidence vote in parliament. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Rabinder Sachdev. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Rabinder, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at this, how might this dissolution of Thailand's parliament, how do you think this will be impacting amid ongoing tensions with Cambodia, and what are the potential risks of calling early elections less than 100 days into Prime Minister Charnvirakul's tenure?
On the one hand, Thailand has been seeing political instability of sorts for the last couple of years. Since 2023 till now, I think Anutin is the third prime minister. And if elections are held, a new one comes, then it will mean that in 3 years there have been 4 prime ministers in Thailand. That's one. Secondly, of course, the power in Thailand On the one hand are the royalists and the military. They control the power. And then you have the civil political, spectrum. Uh, Anuthan's position and dissolution of the parliament, I think, would have impact certainly on Thailand's position with respect to the conflict with Cambodia. Point being, he would like to be seen, and he's already been seen as a nationalist, and going in for his political rhetoric, I think he will harden his position. So Thailand's position with respect to the conflict will get, I think, even more rigid, even more nationalist, and driven by rhetoric. He would like to be seen within the country as upholding the interest of Thailand. And remember, the previous prime minister, hardly 100 days or 3 months ago, she had to step down because she was seen as being soft with Cambodia because of a leaked phone call between her and Hun Sen, the Cambodian prime minister. So when Anuthan came in, he wanted to be seen as a strong leader standing up for Thailand. Sure, there is a case for Thailand to uphold its national integrity, sovereignty, but the political context of Thailand right now, I think, makes it more incumbent upon Anuthan to take advantage of the situation and cast himself as a strong leader opposing Cambodia, or rather pushing for, advocating for a tough stance with Cambodia, so the conflict does not seem to be halting right now, though President Trump had brokered a deal during the ASEAN summit in Malaysia between the two nations. But right now the peace deal seems to be pretty fragile. Not only fragile, it seems to have broken down. Trump has said that he will be making calls to both the leaders of Cambodia and Thailand. However, so that is definitely one pressure which will come, because Trump's name is involved and he wants to make all his peace deals succeed. But Thailand's internal politics may mean that Anuthan, he'll be caretaker for the time being, would pursue a more rigid stance vis-a-vis Cambodia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sachdev, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he will have to make a phone call to help revive a potential deal to end the ongoing conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. Speaking at the White House's annual congressional ball, Trump has lauded that his administration's efforts in wading into 8 conflicts since taking office in January. Thailand and Cambodia held talks on Thursday as new eruption of border hostilities stretched into a 4th day, with leaders of both nations waiting to hear from President Trump. Meanwhile, Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul has said that he is scheduled to speak to Trump later today. Let's listen into what the two leaders have shared.
We've solved 8 wars. Think of it, 8 wars have been solved. Although Thailand and Cambodia, I think I'm going to have to make a couple of phone calls on Thailand, but we'll get that one back on track.
เดี๋ยวผมจะไปที่กองบัญชาการกองทัพไทยเพราะว่าเย็นนี้เดี๋ยวผมจะต้องคุยกับทางท่านนายกมาเลเซียกับท่านประธานาธิบดีทรัมป์ผมก็จะไปขอฟังสรุปผลการดำเนินการของทางกองทัพไทย
Now, for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Sachdev. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Sachdev, for staying with us. As we just heard, in Trump's words, 8 conflicts in his calculations. He says that he has solved, but most of them seem to not be holding. What's your analysis on this? And, do you think that U.S. is lacking something on their maybe on their research in terms of knowing what's actually happening on the ground versus just writing them on the paper and signing them as ceasefire deals? What's your analysis on current situation of U.S.'s power to stop these wars, especially now looking at Thailand-Cambodia border conflict?
I think US is banking on, and Trump is banking on, their money power, their muscle power, and America as a market and an economic superpower to bring conflicting parties to heel. Sure, they are not doing enough background research, contextual research, historical context, but pushing for a peace. Some of them are unraveling, some of them pause, some of them go on, but on the whole, Trump is trying, if one could say. In fact, for the Thailand-Cambodia deal, we, our think tank, Imagine India Institute, have nominated him for the Gandhi Peace Prize for bringing a pause to the Thailand-Cambodia conflict. And our point is that Thailand and Cambodia are, civilizational, spiritual siblings of India. And actually, the conflict which is there between these two countries, one, again, it's a matter of colonial past. The French who occupied Cambodia drew the map, which in 1900s or so, which Thailand never agreed to. And the conflict is over an area where you have many cultural and religious symbols. The Priya Vihar area, for example, which are actually ancient Hindu gods' temples, which are now, let's say, which have now evolved into modern Cambodian and Thai perspectives, but they are hugely Hindu in their, or Hinduism or Hindu philosophy based in their origins. So, and these countries being our neighbors, we would very much want to see peace and harmony and tranquility in this region. So on that basis, we have nominated him for the Gandhi Peace Prize. But yes, seeing this peace deal unravel is not a good news. But then, given the clout that America has, there is a good chance that America will be able to, or Trump will be able to bring a pause, again a pause, maybe a tentative pause, maybe not everyone is happy and you will see some skirmishes going on. But in a big picture, both countries, Cambodia and Thailand, cannot afford to anger or irritate Donald Trump. That is a fact. And Trump is counting on that. So chances are that peace will prevail. But yes, such long past historical conflicts cannot be resolved at the switch of a button on and off. They could take time, but I do hope that peace will prevail sooner rather than later.
Hopefully, yes, and we will be eyeing that on this channel. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Sachdev for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Now we move the focus on to Europe. Greece's finance minister has been named as the head of the Eurogroup, the body that helps shape Eurozone policy. This undermines his country's turnaround since the years when it came close to crashing out of the single currency. Kyriakos Pierrakakis has saw off the rival Belgian candidate to become the president of the Assembly of Finance Ministers from the 20 countries sharing the euro. Greece had to be bailed out 3 times when 2010 and 2015 by Eurozone governments to avoid economic collapse after years of excessive borrowing and overspending. It now has steady economic growth above 2%, the highest investment rates in the Eurozone, budget surpluses, and public debt that has been falling quickly for years. Let's in fact listen into what the new Eurogroup president has shared.
I feel deeply honored by the trust my colleagues have placed upon me to serve as the new president of the Eurogroup. I want to thank them sincerely for their confidence and for the spirit of cooperation shown throughout this process. That the old distinctions which existed in Europe and within which generations of Europeans grew, the distinctions between the North and the South, the East and the West, the so-called frugals and the so-called spenders, seem to have subsided. And this is because the challenges that we face are more or less common. They're very similar.
Now we move the focus on to U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order aimed at blocking a growing wave of state-level artificial intelligence laws and replacing them with a single national standard. Trump has said that the U.S. needs one central source of approval, as the order gives the administration new authority to push back on what it calls overly strict state rules while still allowing measures focused on children's safety. Major AI companies, including OpenAI, Google, and Meta, support federal oversight, warning that differing state laws could slow innovation. But state leaders from both parties argue that they must act as Congress continues to stall on tech legislation. Florida and California are among states advancing their own AI safeguards, from privacy protections to rules addressing catastrophic risks and AI-generated deepfakes. Let's listen in.
signing right now, and we have a tremendous industry where we're leading by a lot. It's the AI, artificial intelligence. I always thought it should be SI, supreme intelligence, but I guess somewhere along the line they decided on the word artificial, and that's okay with me. That's up to them. It's a massive industry. We're leading China. We're leading everybody by a tremendous amount.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.